How's it going?
Hey.
Hey, so you came onto my radar with you have a lot of spicy posts on LinkedIn and now your Substack, and I like where you're coming from. So we had a chat,
Thank
and
you.
now you're here. So kind of cool. For people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro?
My name is Susanna Cox, aka Disesdi. I am artificial intelligence engineer and architect. So I came from a security background. So I've been doing security research in AI for over a decade now. I'm a core member of the OWASP AI Exchange author team and a research lead on several projects. And I also contribute to red teaming initiatives because I'm a former red teamer, including the OWASP AI Exchange collaboration with Cloud Security Alliance on agentic red teaming, and some other initiatives. I also contribute to policy and standards, particularly requirements for the EU AI Act.
Oh, fun. We can talk about that. Maybe we have some mutual friends with that act. But I guess kind of backing up, so you've been in security for a while. What got you interested in the intersection of security and AI?
Yeah, so I remember it was back a while ago when people first started talking about privacy invasions and how, I think everyone was on Facebook back in the day. I don't know how popular it still is, but, or at least here in the US, but everyone was on Facebook and everyone was talking about like security or rather privacy violations and this idea that the algorithm would take your data and, learn from you and kind of steal that. And my thought process was, okay, if the algorithm learns from me and my data, doesn't that mean I kind of control it? Like I get to tell it what to think, right? So that was kind of my first thought process into figuring out if these things could be manipulated. And then that sort of opened up a Pandora's box. It turns out, yeah, they absolutely can. There's a good amount of research in the literature on exactly how to do that. And, from there on out, it just sort of spiraled into infinity.
Okay. In what ways did it spiral?
I mean, there's so many applications. We have AI is embedded into everything in our lives now. And I don't just mean generative AI. Like we've
Right.
been relying on predictive AI systems for decades. Many of them work very well. Some of them do not work as well. Some of them have perpetuated harmful systemic problems that we have. I don't even want to limit it to bias because that's such a loaded word. But these apps or these applications, rather, of AI have been in our daily lives for a really long time. So, because there are so many applications and we're so used to them and they sort of hum along in the background, there are many, many, many potential security vectors and attack points for not just generative AI, but predictive AI systems as well. So, this AI security is such a huge field. There's so many different directions you can go into. And, people think I'm a little bit all over the place because I'm a purple teamer, but honestly, this is like a narrow focus compared to how much is actually out there.
Yeah, so I've heard like red teaming and stuff, but what's purple teaming?
Yeah,
And you got I'm a security I can be the first to admit and get a lot of hacks after this probably, but yeah, security is not really my field of expertise, and so teach me.
got it. Okay, I love this. So I love getting to introduce people to the color teams. So there's different colors, but there's two you want to really focus on for security, and that's the red and the blue team. Red is generally offensive, blue is defensive. So you can think of this as the attacker defender model. But when you're working together in industry, the red team represents your ethical hackers, the people that are paid to attack your systems and find the vulnerabilities, whereas the blue team is the defenders, your analysts, your people that are in the SOC or whatever that are reading all of the logs and so forth and making sure the system stays safe. So there's been a big push in recent years to sort of unite these teams together under an umbrella of governance, and that's where the idea of purple teaming comes along. Because you can red team and pen test something all day long, but if your red team and your blue team are not only just talking to each other, but also communicating
Hmm.
with the stakeholders and affecting governance, then like you're not going to get anywhere. So that's the idea of purple teaming, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I'm surprised that that didn't happen before. Like, or are you saying that these teams were siloed and not talking to each other?
Yes, big time. And so, not only in traditional security do we see red and blue teams super siloed, and I mean, also you'll see there's like kind of sometimes rivalries between these groups. They're not real, but like, I guess some people take it kind of seriously. But a great deal of siloing in terms of expertise, and then also I think the missing piece is governance, which sort of brings all of these things together. Because you can know that your system is insecure, and you can have an idea of what to do about it, but if you don't operationalize that, then you've really got nothing. So yeah, it is kind of a new idea that came about because of people seeing these deficiencies. And then there's a
Huh.
parallel issue in data or AI security where we have the siloing of security teams versus the data teams. Like you said, people who are just like aces at data don't necessarily have an exposure to security. So yeah, a lot of siloing.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we covered in my book. Security is one of the undercurrents of data engineering, but that was more just, I would say it just, I think we covered it pretty lightly, but it's just make sure you think about security. Again, not saying I'm an expert in it, but at least it was one of those things where I felt if we didn't give it coverage, I think we'd be committing professional malpractice when we're teaching people about data. Just because I mean, there's been so many data breaches and now AI breaches, and Lord knows what's happening next. And
Right.
yeah, so yep.
Yeah, thank you
It's,
for including that because like that's one of the primary missions that I have right now is breaking down the barriers between data and security teams.
mm,
And among those teams and the governance and so forth, like it's a lot. There's a lot going on there.
yeah, what was it? We had yeah, our small contribution to the world. What was it? Certain land is about. Yeah, chapter 10, a whole chapter dedicated to security and privacy. But again, I would say this is more of a primer. Like, put it, like, at least think about it. Because it is shocking how often this doesn't happen. Like, classic things we would see is just basic stuff, security ports wide open to the world, public S3 buckets at a bare minimum. Like, I'm sure there's a million other things you could think of, but that's just like table stake stuff that we'd see quite often and kind of have
Yes.
a big WTF moment, but it is what it is.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Yeah, everything you're saying is ringing very true and accurate to me right now. Having like worked on data teams and security teams, I'm not trying to point
mhm.
any fingers here, but
Yeah,
we often say like you have really deterministic thinking on the part of security teams and more probabilistic thinking on the part of data teams, and these things are they're hard to unite in some respects.
well, why do you think that the probabilistic and deterministic mindsets are there?
That's an interesting question. I think there's a little bit of a chicken and egg aspect to it because, like, okay, does security train people to think deterministically or does it attract that sort of person? Because in many ways, that's who you want working on security, right? The patch is either applied or not, the switch is either on or it's off. Like, you have your perimeter secured, and I know we're at zero trust, but like it's that sort of thinking that sort of lends itself well to maintaining a proactive security environment. And that
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily work at all with AI. So whether the profession attracts that sort of person or you just get trained in that way of thinking by being in it, I'm not like a psychologist. I don't know,
Right.
but it seems to work out that way.
Yeah, that's interesting because I don't know. It's um yeah, because I always felt like data people were very deterministic. So that's an
Interesting.
interesting observation. Yeah.
In what way?
Well, if you think about the nature of, say, data pipelines, for example, or infrastructure, right, it should be idempotent, i.e., something goes in, functional, right? So I have an input, an expected output. Um, and if it deviates, right, why would that be? But it's one of those things where, yeah, there are operational rules in terms of how data would be processed, and if there are deviations, that would be it would be interesting to know why. So, um, obviously, data itself can be very random, but the process by which you handle the data should be deterministic. So, yeah, but then you
Yeah.
start getting into, but it starts bleeding into other areas, right? So, data also covers things like, obviously, data engineering, but analytics, and now data science, which I've always hated that term, but now ML. AI increasingly, which is sort of interestingly with AI, it sort of starts to overlap across the entire continuum of like software, data, ML, and so forth. So that's what gets, I think, fascinating about this latest crop of generative AI, at least, is it's sort of seeping into the nooks and crannies of like all these other disciplines. So
Isn't
it's
that interesting too? And now the ops that you need to support agentic deployments, especially to deploy them with anything approaching production capability or security, is just absolutely mind blowing. So data engineering isn't going anywhere, to my
no.
way of thinking. For sure. It's interesting to me too that we have this collapsing of all these different fields. Like, I think it's analogous, sorry to make it about security again, but
I know.
yeah,
It's
with
it's
Gen
kind of
AI,
important.
well, with Gen AI, you have this the single channel problem, which is a collapsing of your channels for data and instructions into one single channel, which is how
Yeah.
you have the injection vulnerability. So I wonder, AI just seems like we kind of want to shove everything into one thing and get an average of it. And I see this pattern reflected in it in its deployments over and over.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that I'll call it classical ML. You may have a different term for it, but it's sort of the pre-Gen AI ML that we were doing. Back in, I guess, when it was still cool to call things ML and not AI. But you mentioned the security for that was hard enough. And the footprints of those models are quite discrete, really. It's like, okay, train a model, deploy it, retrain, redeploy, but these are pretty discrete things, right? A recommendation system here, maybe you have a forecasting model over here, but they were very use case specific. Now you have this sort of overarching generative aspect to it that it's just it's a lot different than it used to be because it's also more API accessible too. Whereas in the past, this wasn't really. You could have a team of data scientists make stuff pretty easy, or pretty hard, whatever. But it wasn't like you'd be consuming from like the fire hose of your open AIs or Anthropic APIs, and tokens weren't really a discussion at all back in the day. But walk me through this. Like, what are the security differences that you've seen between maybe old school um, classical ML versus kind of contemporary AI today?
Yeah, so there are a number. Let me think. I think probably it would be good to stay high level here and think about one of the key distinctions is the deployment. I think that's super important. It used to be hard to get an API up for your model to do inference. In fact, it still is. You need ML
Mhm.
ops engineering talent to do things like that, right? So one of the things that we've noted is that securing the system requires a high degree of operationalization. If you aren't able to operationalize properly, you're not going to be able to get security. So that's something that has stayed the same. Something that has changed is that with Gen AI applications, besides the fact that you have all of your data and instructions traveling through a channel and these fundamental built-in vulnerabilities, you also have users interacting directly with the system in a much more immediate way than you previously had with other ML systems in many respects, not all. And it was bad back then because on my paper in 2022, I was like, if you let your users create the data, you've effectively given them control of your system. And that's accurate. But now it's a super direct channel in. And I think another aspect to consider is where Gen AI is being deployed, which is everywhere. And it's worth thinking about, I think, for any enterprise to realize that when it comes to Gen AI, every company is an AI company now because your employees are, maybe not necessarily using it at work, but they're using it at home, or it's embedded into systems that they don't even realize that it's a part of, or they're a part of, for example. So this attack surface has just exploded effectively. It's absolutely massive now.
What are some of the big, keeping a high level, like what are some of the big uh, security incidents that you can that you've seen with generative AI so far?
Oh, well, okay. So, two of the actually, I will say my favorite one to bring up, because this is an agentic deployment, and I've been talking about it a lot, is the Catholic Health breach, which breach in quotes here. Wasn't really a breach. I wrote about this. It was their a contractor, their customer service provider was an agentic AI startup, and somehow nearly 500,000 of their patient records ended up on the open internet in plain text. So you have people's social security numbers, name, diagnoses, medications, just everything available for anyone to just grab. And this is a failure of securing an allegedly agentic deployment. We just had a major vulnerability. Agent Smith was announced by the security team at NOMA. Basically, this is people who are sharing AI artifacts and having really serious vulnerabilities injected into them. And this is one where if someone had been using the frameworks and services that this was embedded into, I guess we'll call the API that. I know what level of technical acumen people are at here, but basically, if
They're
you use some,
technical.
all right,
Yep.
cool. If you use something that had Agent Smith in it, if you used any of these AI artifacts, you opened yourself up to massive data exfiltration. And that sounds bad, but what if you're a health startup, for example? What if you're a government organization that deals with super sensitive records? So really, when you think about the applications, the ones that are as bad as they really are only going to get worse, it looks like.
Didn't McDonald's have an issue too recently where,
Oh yeah. They had it was all of their job application
yeah,
information got leaked. And the big one that's out now is this one was supposedly a vibe coded app called T, which was oh, did you not hear about this? This one's
I
amazing.
only heard you explain it to the audience.
Yeah. Okay,
It's
so
interesting.
this is bananas. This was an app that was supposed to be like a women's dating safety app where they can like share information about men they had dated. I'm not going to get into the ethics of that, whatever. But the app was ostensibly designed to keep women safe, but because it was so insecurely coded, once again, someone was able to, I think, I don't remember the exact mechanism, but basically everything was plain on the internet. They just grabbed it. There was no password protection at
Oh my
all.
God.
Yeah. So yeah, super bad vibe coding. That one I couldn't even read any more of because I got so mad at all of it. Like my head caught fire, and I was like, yeah, that's it.
So it did
I
the
can't
opposite
even.
of what it was supposed to do. So
Literally, in a deeply ironic twist, it
I think I
endangered.
saw your post about it too. It was some we can talk about the ethical stuff. I think these are intertwined, but it was some dude that made it as well. So, which
Yeah.
if you want to make a honey trap, I suppose that was be a great way to do it.
Thank you. Okay, it's just my opinion. It's just my opinion, but this is too on the nose, right? Like, I'm sorry. Really? Is this, are we in a play right now? So I don't know. Just my opinion. Just my
That was
opinion.
one of the first things that occurred to me. I was like, man, you're pretty good at this. So just vibe code. If you what you had some interesting posts on vibe coding. I'd like to get into this because I think from a non-security expert's point of view, this seems like a giant security mess waiting to happen or is happening. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. That was a pretty good summary. I mean, here's the thing that has frustrated me about this, and I'm not like sitting here saying like I'm the master coder or anything. I'm not. I'm a security professional and a data scientist. Like I understand networking and I understand scikit-learn, TensorFlow. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. But like, I'm not like a master coder. But my thinking is, if you're putting something out there, you don't understand what it does or how it works, that's irresponsible. You haven't 10x'd yourself. You're just building in liabilities for later. And to me, it is just kind of wildly short sighted. And I'm going to be honest with you, from my perspective, lazy. For people to be like, wow, look at everything I can build without having to actually do the work to learn it. It's not fun to go through Stack Overflow. It's not fun to experience, especially if you're dumb like me. Like you have to like try the code a bunch of times and figure out what it does. But like that's how you learn. And if you skip that, what are you putting out into the world? You're inviting people to use something that you yourself have no idea how it works. And
Hmm.
to me, that's just so unethical.
Yeah, I mean, I have the agents. The agents. the two popular ones, Cursor and then Copilot. And yeah, I go back and forth in this. Like I did vibe code an app once, and it spit out 30,000 lines of code, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. Like, because I'm call me a boomer, but I would kind of like to know what was built and maybe go through it. But I'm not going to go through 30,000 lines of code. It's stupid. Um,
Who
so I
can
started.
go through 30,000 lines of code?
Well,
Nobody.
I can read code too, right? But that's the problem. I don't want to do it, and the problem is even you wouldn't know how you wouldn't be able to reconcile any of the entire code base. It's too big. You wouldn't have any
Yes.
context of building it. So right now we're building. It's typically we built systems from the bottom up, so you can reconcile and you kind of have a baseline knowledge, and that's how I'm using generative AI for coding right now. It does speed up my workflow to some extent. Other cases it actually slows me down. I'm sort of tossing a coin on this one. Um, I actually find it horribly annoying sometimes because just autocomplete a bunch of shit. And I'm like, I don't want any of that.
Right.
So I do go through points where I kind of turn it off, but in other cases it actually helps me a ton. So I'm on the fence. But in either case, I've started basically building from the bottom up. Like, here's a step, we'll do this. Here's a step, we'll do this. Some of my friends have said, you're moving too slow, and I'm like, I don't think the coding has ever been the hard part to begin with. It's always been like making stuff that's useful and that people want to use and that kind of stuff, and like isn't going to leak a bunch of women's profiles to the internet. That would be bad, right? So, but it's interesting, right? Because on the other side of the fence, a lot of my friends, software developers, AI peeps, they're bowling on vibe coding. I'm sure that announcement that recently went out about Claude Code was directed at them because they just have it turned on nonstop. Just coding and they're feeling productive. So I'm like, fine, if that's what you want to do, I don't, not my problem when if you get a problem. So it's interesting. I
Well, the thing is, it's not like I wanted to be like, oh, well, whatever you build is your business. I'm not your dad. But like, how many people's sensitive information might you expose? Like, what might be. Someone posted on LinkedIn a while back, they were like, vibe coding allows people who could never code to make all these apps. And it's great because now more people can make apps. And I was like, no, bad, false. We need
yeah,
less apps. Like
right.
everyone shouldn't make apps. Maybe that's not everyone's role in life, and that's
Well,
okay.
what do we need more apps for?
You got me. I don't know, but
Like two
that's
months ago, the CEO of IBM, at the conference, he said, by 2028, generative AI and agents will have made 1 billion apps. I immediately thought that's the dumbest metric I've ever seen. Because it's like if you replace that with lines of code, and it kind of is the equivalent transitively. But it's like, what are you accomplishing with that? It's a weird metric. I
yeah.
actually
And
fewer apps would be
to
good.
your point, yeah, sorry. To your point earlier, though, like what you were saying about having the context awareness, I think I like your framing better. It's not actually the 30,000ness of the lines of code. It's the fact that you have so many dependencies here, probably a lot of different files, and you don't know how they all relate because you didn't build it because you don't have the context for it.
Yeah.
Um, so
But I feel like with my engineering friends though, it's weird. I feel like they all went to Burning Man, dropped acid, or like at a frat party getting really drunk, and now, but it's not just them. It's like everybody in,
same
in
thing.
the in the industry is doing that, and it's like, dude, why aren't you getting like fucked up with us right now? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what are you, a square? Like, but that's what I feel like. There's just a collective, screw it, let's go all in on this thing. We have no idea what's going on, but if we're not doing it, it's we're missing out on the future, and it's a very bizarre thing to watch.
Wow. I mean, I'm here in the Bay Area, so that Burning Man analogy hits
Yeah,
because
it's
I've
happening
never
right
been.
now.
Oh,
I,
is
I
it? Yeah.
haven't I
I've
haven't
never
either.
been there. I don't know. I don't know what they do. I mean, I know what they do at Burning Man,
I wish I would have gone.
but
I wish I would have gone. I had a chance to go back in the early days, but I somehow missed it. But right now, I couldn't bring myself to go. It seemed that's like a very hipster thing to say and very judgmental. But whatever, I don't care.
I
Um,
it's cringe. It's cringe. I'll keep that gate. If you went to Burning Man and got something good out of it, fuck you. I don't care. I'm just kidding. But like, I don't know. I think again similar, maybe a little less ayahuasca and a little bit more focusing on engineering principles. I don't know.
but it's also what you're seeing though is kind of wild, right? So there's a video from Bill McDermott from ServiceNow that was recently circulating where he's like, 90. It's almost like we're doing vibe companies now too, not just vibe coding. I think that's like a sliver of more of what's going on in the universe. Because the CEO, and he's not the only one, but he's like, AI is doing like 97% of our tasks right now or something like that. I'm like, no, they aren't. Like, I know people at your companies, it's not even anywhere close to that. And, he's like, well, we can just get rid of all these soul crushing jobs, as he called them, because, this will free people from having to take these kind of jobs. But it's a very condescending thing to say, especially when you're not offering an alternative for them to work. You're just saying, well, your job sucks. We're just going to eliminate it. And there's no alternative, but we're going to do this like en masse. So buy our product. So you don't have to have more people and who have soul crushing jobs. It's a very strange because like all these CEOs, right? Satya Nadella's letter recently about Microsoft and how they put so much capex into AI and they have to recoup it somehow. So fuck it, we'll just lay off a bunch of people. Um, Amazon, same thing. Well, we'll start replacing workers with AI. You better start learning AI or you'll be out. It's just so it isn't just to me about vibe coding. It's like we're vibe, businessing or whatever you want to call it. It's fucking bizarre.
No, I'm with you. I think but I feel like it's probably always been that way. I don't know. Like, it's weird becoming like the adult now because I'm like, oh, y'all don't know what you're talking about. I thought the grown-ups knew what they were talking about, but I don't think so now. I think everybody's just kind of vibing with it. But to your point, yeah, absolute silliness when they're like X% of our work is done by AI now. I'm like, are you high? Do you hear yourself? Like, who is this messaging for? Is it like for your little group of CEO friends that you all got to like brag about who's got more AI going on? Because I don't know anyone else in the industry that's like, oh yeah, agents can definitely do that, because they can't. Um,
Right.
yeah.
It's weird. It's this gaslighting that's going on right now. I'm writing an article. I think I called it. I forgot to pay my AI gaslight bill. But it feels very much like that. Where if you listen to the leaders of these companies, it's like we have AI running everywhere. But I know people in these companies, and I know for a fact they don't because they're building the infrastructure right now to do it. It's nowhere close. Like you saw a couple POCs, and they like, oh shit, well obviously it's going everywhere as you take a bong hit or ayahuasca or whatever. So it's nuts.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. The layoffs and all of that, I feel like at some point it's all going to have to even itself out, especially as they're hiring people back. Because I'm definitely already getting inquiries of people to be like, "Can you please fix this?" The
Oh wow.
AI, yeah,
Okay.
all this mess that we tried to do. So, and I know other people are being called in to repair AI generated code, which is not my wheelhouse, but a similar vein. So,
You can just use
I
AI to fix it.
yeah, right. Like the AI will simply question itself and get smarter. Okay, like you just troll my LinkedIn for a while and see how many comments like that I get. Like
Oh, I do. I
everybody
look at your stuff all the time because I'm like, she speaks sense. I listen. I look at the comments too, and they're pretty wild, some of them. But
bananas, bananas. The stuff people say to me on there. Some of it is just like pretty clearly sexism, which is whatever.
yeah, it
Those
is.
people, yeah, those people I like. I egg them on because it boosts my engagement, and that's funny to me. So if you're gonna come to my LinkedIn and be a jerk, I guess I'm gonna get some
I
clout
think
out
I
of that.
trolled you the other day. I tried to, but it was like I left an AI generated like one of those AI comments you can just leave, but I was like, the line between
Nice.
subtlety and just looking at dork is probably not whatever. So,
Oh no, well I probably didn't see it. If I didn't see it, I didn't see it because
well,
I
the
get
thing
a
is,
lot of
those comments are so
notifications.
unremarkable. How would you see it? It's like great insight. And you're like, yeah, thanks,
Oh,
awesome.
if you did that sarcastically, see, then I wouldn't know. If now that I've talked to you and I know you a little bit better, I would know that that was a joke. But if not, I would think you were just trying to be supportive, and I would be like, "Oh,
Oh yeah, what a nice
yeah."
guy. No, he's actually kind of a dick. So
Duly noted. Well, from now on, your comments will be met appropriately.
not a problem. Um, Speaking of policy, we are speaking of policy, but you mentioned the AI Act early on, and there's been a couple of them. There's the AI Action, which has the word AI Act in it, actually, and then the EU AI Act. What are your thoughts on the current state of policy right now?
That's funny. So the Europe has an AI Act, but America made theirs the AI Action Plan. This is action. I like that. That's funny. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, somebody in Europe told me once, like the EU regulates and the US innovates. It was just kind of this stark contrast, and I was like, yeah, we're so cool. Anyway,
Right. Well, sure, sure. We'll go with that. I
I'm just
actually
kidding.
agree with that statement, and but I'm delighted to be contributing to the regulation because what that helps us understand is how innovation works in practice.
Mm,
Um, and so in the U.S. we have, and I'm not. This isn't speaking pejoratively about the AI action plan. I actually have some pretty good things to say about it, and I have some pretty different thoughts on how it came to be and maybe the significance of that. But um, it's nice to be able to contribute to these requirements because what we're seeing in real time is okay, how do you actually do governance in a way that allows industry to flourish? We have an extreme in the United States where we're not really regulating for security or anything like that. And I feel like part of the consequence of not stressing things like security and production readiness is that fewer businesses will actually be able to meet that standard. So to me, I don't know that it's a regulatory issue for the United States,
mm.
but I would like to see a cultural focus on security increase. Okay, I'm sorry. This is my soapbox. I'm just gonna say it, and then I'm gonna be. Okay, we have to stop separating responsible AI from secure AI because all of the things that make your AI secure kind of also work with responsible AI. They're the same thing. So if you vilify responsible AI, like audits and that sort of thing, you're also cutting off your chance for secure AI. I don't know who came up with this dichotomy or whose interest it serves, but we gotta stop doing that.
Yeah, from a dummy like me, I mean, I think that those would be the same things, but what do I know? Um,
Yep, you would think.
was responsible AI,
Here,
was it one of these things where it sort of blended into the ethical AI arguments that we need to, because I think responsible AI, at least in discussions I had, was sort of around ethics bias, all this stuff, but maybe, I don't know. What is responsible AI?
so here's the thing. And when I wrote my paper in 2022, and I feel so weird. I always have to say it's the first MLSecOps architecture that got published.
That's cool.
Yeah, thank you. It was groundbreaking, and I feel like my groundbreaking paper. But when I wrote my paper, the point of it was I was tired of seeing this dichotomy, and I was like, okay, we have a serious security problem. The way we solve this problem is with audits, is with understanding the bias within our model. You're not going to be able to get rid of bias from AI models because bias is how they work. If they don't learn any bias, then they have no predictive value or they have no ability to make inference, as it were. So without bias, you don't have an AI model. The trick is understanding your bias. And the way we do that is with these so-called responsible AI practices with like data sheets for data sets, model
Okay.
cards, auditing, and so forth. Having monitoring, continuous monitoring of your model to see how it's performing. This is a responsible AI principle that also secures your AI systems. So if you throw all of those out, baby in the bathwater type of situation, what you're left with is insecure systems that will break in production, and that's just the way it is.
Hmm. Then you mentioned this word bias, and part of the AI action is removing any, I think what they call top-down bias, i.e., woke AI, I think is the administration called it. Thoughts?
That's so silly. I just like, okay, it's just silly. I don't know. Like, at least they said, okay, at least, and people are going to get mad at me for saying this, at least they specified an ideology. If they had said get rid of all the ideologies from the AI, which is kind of what they're implying that woke is the only one, that would be bad. Because the thing about these systems is that they are trained on the open internet. The open internet is not a nice place. There are bad people on the internet that come to the internet to do and say bad things. As a result, the models learn bad things. Consequently, all of the major companies that train these models employ a virtual army of data workers who do data labeling annotation work primarily in the global south. And these are the people that make sure that your AI doesn't tell you horrible things. And many of them have literally gotten PTSD because
I
the
was about to say, it
things.
sounds like if you want a soul-crushing job,
Thank you. Literally, that's a soul crushing job. Interestingly, they're suing, but not because they wanted more money. They're suing for access to mental health care because of the work they have to do. So that being said, these models do not naturally say nice things. They're not naturally nice. They're going to say what they've been trained on, which is the open internet. The guardrails that they're trained with always contain bias, and they will always contain the biases of whatever culture they are produced from. So, for example, in the United States, a lot of these models tended to have either the woke or anti-woke bias, whereas with China's DeepSeek, people were like, this is propaganda. Nope, that's just their guardrails.
Hmm.
Over there. They considered inappropriate to speak ill of the Chinese government. And that's the cultural guardrail that they're putting in their AI. But
Hmm.
everyone is putting guardrails on these systems. So if you want to remove all the bias, I'm going to laugh at you and say that's silly. If you want to remove the quote unquote woke bias, that's a personal preference, but at least that is technically possible, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, they're going to have to do it too, is the big companies are, because otherwise you're not going to get federal funding. So unless you don't want federal funding,
Yeah.
you're going to have to remove the wokeness, which would be very fascinating to see what these models spit out after they've been um, repaired.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait. Well, we got a preview with the X with Grok, right?
Grok.
Like, yeah,
Oh my
it's
God,
turned into.
Grok is funny. I've so my friends are like, if you want to make like really unhinged images, Grok is amazing. I'm like, I think this would be kind of fun. Let's fucking do it. So, yeah, I had a lot of fun with it, making extremely inappropriate images, and it did a good job. Sometimes it would say I can't make that. I'd be like, make the image. I'd be like, okay.
You were like, Grok, my grandmother is sick, and she really, yeah. Did you do that one where you have to? My grandma used to tell me a story or something.
Oh, make it
Did
feel
you just have to?
bad.
Yeah, did you
Uh,
just have to ask it twice?
no, no, you just asked it twice. Just like do it. It's like okay. So, like that was easy.
Wow.
So yeah, it's pretty nuts though. Yeah, and it's interesting because I go to the EU quite a bit too to give talks, and in fact I gave a talk in Munich back in the spring on an American's perspective of the EU AI Act, which is funny because I know people who were the architects of that act, and I think it's interesting comparing their act to our, I guess, our action. That was probably a play on words there, but there it's interesting because um, it's the European mentality is, well, let's figure out how we can get everyone compliant. This is in Germany, obviously, where they're very rule oriented, and they don't even jaywalk there. They're just very by the book. So it was interesting because my thing was, look, it's in the spring of this year, and I said, it's great you guys came up with an act. I don't know if the current administration is going to care too much because this is around the time of the tariffs. Like, well, all we need to do is just tariff you if you mess with our companies. And they're like, yeah, you're probably right, actually. I was like, yeah, I know, but you geared the act towards our companies. So, I mean, it's kind of clear who this is intended for. So I thought it was very interesting just because the mentality, and this was the people at this talk were the people in, make sure people were compliant with it. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see if this thing has teeth, but um,
Well, we're
it'll be
trying to work.
interesting.
Yeah, we're trying to work right now to make sure that it has teeth, but also to make sure that it has like actionable steps that people can really do. Because it's one
Yeah.
thing, this is what we're hashing out right now in the working groups. Like, it's one thing to tell people you have to like red team your AI systems. Best of luck, right? But like, people, they need to know how. They need to know what is sufficient, what they're looking for when they've tested enough, and then auditors and regulators need to be able to check that too. So it requires a great deal of empathy and time
Hmm.
and back and forth to craft regulations like this, and that's a little bit antithetical to the America, fuck yeah, like guns blazing, explosion, eagle screech, like that's how our AI action plan got announced. But I
Oh,
will
very much
say that
so.
the woke thing is interesting to me because I think it's effectively meaningless. And people are like, free speech. I don't think so because it's just about government procurement for the AI models, and it's really just a matter of changing their guardrails. What I do think is interesting is that in the course of all of this, they announced an infrastructure plan where they are
Yeah.
putting, yeah, the data center sites on federal land with nuclear sites. And Peter Thiel is building one right now in Paducah, Kentucky. They just announced that his uranium enrichment site in Paducah is also going to be the home of a new AI data center. So
Shocking.
yeah. So while everyone's out there arguing about whether an AI model can be woke or not,
Yeah.
that's what's going on.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's yeah, it's about building lots of data centers now. That
Mm.
is a big thing. I was talking to
So
somebody from Stargate a while back, and that was it's almost, the amount of money being thrown into the data centers right now. With Stargate's what, $500 billion. I turned to my friend and I was kind of like, is there maybe a way we can come up with better math for different, like, better models maybe, or better hardware to make it more efficient? Then I was like, you're asking a really dumb question. It's like $500 billion. Of course, nobody's going to ask anything. It's not going to make it more efficient. They're just going to try and spend the money. So, but it's not like that. Yeah, he told me they're dusting off pretty much every decommissioned nuclear reactor they can find.
yes.
Um, anything at this point. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, and we actually in the United States have a surprising amount of this infrastructure, and this is personal to me because I'm from the Deep South, and this is where a lot of the Manhattan Project took place. So they like I lived and worked in Oak Ridge in that area, and there's another facility that's going in there on the Oak Ridge Reserve, which is another nuclear area.
Hmm.
But these are nuclear towns that were literally created for the Manhattan Project, and now they're being repurposed for a new nuclear push for AI. It's wild times.
Well, this is our Manhattan Project.
I don't know
So
if I
it's
would want to claim
it's.
that
I
one.
mean, that's how
Too
it's being
loud.
positioned, though. That is how it's being positioned. Is in
Yeah.
big business. It's like, we have to get to AGI. This is the Manhattan Project of our time. Is this? It's interesting because it's this race towards AGI, ASI, and because they're thinking as well, like, I was reading an article today about how a town in Texas, Abilene, I think it is, where they have a data center. They are in a drought too, and then surprisingly, it's like wasting all their water. And I was like, so is the hope that you're going to come up with AGI so it can figure out a way to like replenish your water sources or something? Like, what's the end game of all this? You
That's
know,
yeah, great question. I don't know. And everyone that's because I came from natural language processing, everyone that's from computational linguistics or NLP is like, hey guys, these LLMs are not going to scale to like super intelligence. Like we all know it. We crunched the numbers, we did the math. What are we doing here? So as usual, I think it's about something else as the
it
princess of
seems like a
conspiracies. Yeah.
well, because it's if you go back to the business examples too, it's like, okay, you're gonna put these large language models and then agents, which as far as I can tell in the current manifestation are just LLMs trained, like, chained together for different specialties. It's not that special. So it is interesting. I mean, but then everyone will point to Richard Sutton's the bitter lesson where it's like, well, if you just throw more computation at deep learning, it obviously scales to solve any problem, known to humanity. So therefore, if we just, 1,000x the amount of compute, we'll obviously have better results. And so it's fascinating. I
Yeah,
don't know.
if only data scaled that way. If only the curse of dimensionality didn't exist. I guess we could probably if only gravity was not tying us down, we could do whatever we wanted and fly, I
Well, that's why you got to
guess.
go to space
Yeah,
with
sure.
your
If we
humanoid
get
colony. Yeah.
yeah, we'll get AGI to tell us how to colonize Mars and it's also we just don't have the vision.
Don't have the vision. Well, I guess Elon gave up on it, according to that's all you say, but it's just it's an interesting time.
Elon's not going to Mars anymore. Where are all his kids going to go?
Um, yeah, that would be one way to get out paying child support, wouldn't it? Uh, so yeah, good question.
I'm
So,
sure that was his plan all along.
but he's gonna buy code an app now, and he'll just get more wives or something. I don't know. So I guess you could just like get the data leak that just dropped from that from T. So yeah.
Yikes. Oh, wow. A match made in heaven. Goodness.
Yeah, it's wild. Like what Well, I hate to ask this question because it sounds kind of trite, like a typical interview question. But like, you see a lot of stuff. What keeps you up at night?
Oh, okay. Again, unpopular opinion, but influence ops. Influence ops. Oh man, I think about this a lot. It is very, very frighteningly easy to take over social media. It's very easy to use that to manipulate the media. It's very easy to use agenda setting to manipulate the public, and it's very easy to use all these systems in one to do agenda setting work. So I think a
Hmm.
lot about how little organization, manpower, and so forth it would take on the part of a foreign adversary to exert tremendous influence over American electoral and policy systems just because of their influence ops on social media, for
Well,
example.
you're speaking like it's hypothetical.
I don't know, it's not, but like the worst hasn't happened yet, and that's the
Okay,
problem.
that's what keeps
Yeah,
you
like
up. It's gonna
yeah,
get
I
worse.
have
Okay.
to. I mean, the scale. It's the scale. It's the absolute scale. And the way that these technologies are so embedded, in the way that they are so effective at telling people what to think. And you would think like this would have to be a very long game, but it doesn't. It doesn't need to be a very long game at all. So,
Yeah.
I that's what keeps me up, and no one's fixing it, and they have no plans to, because like, hey, you know what, it's a back door. Sure, adversaries can use this to control the American public, but so can you if you're savvy with it. So it's not really in your best interest to do anything about it.
This is true, and the big one that came to light. I think the first public manifestation of this was, well, there are probably others, right? But at least the most recent form was Cambridge Analytica, and that was like 10 years ago.
Oh
And
yeah, did you notice
that
that?
was that was before generative AI,
Yeah. Well, I don't think generative I mean, it really just made this easier to scale a little bit,
right?
but generating the text was not really the hard part of doing something like this. Like, you need, and now I guess Gen AI, that people are chaining together tools to do this, but you needed to
Hmm.
be able to create personas. You have to be able to manage your personas, which is a technical challenge in and of itself. So if you can do messaging, persona management, and then you need to understand the vectors by which things get promoted in social media algorithms. For that,
Mm.
you construct your shadow algorithms and that sort of thing. Um, Once you have your shadow models, you can test your message. You can test it using different personas. You can A/B test across the whole network. You can do this at scale, and this behavior is actually encouraged, because as long as you're bringing eyes onto the platform, the platforms don't care how you're doing it. Yeah, so there's
That's
a lot of incentives to not fix it.
if you were to fix it, how would you do it?
Um, yeah, so I wrote a paper in 2022 that was basically like, let's create a failure modes and effects analysis. So this is, and I think there are differing like versions for software that have different proponents, but the idea in general of failure modes and effects analysis is that we take any system before when we're doing our basic engineering and architectural understanding of it, and say, how can this go wrong? Right, and this isn't, we look at the four questions of threat modeling. What are we working on? What can go wrong? What are we going to do about it, and did we do a good job? Failure modes and effects analysis is the what can go wrong aspect.
Mm.
So if this fails, how's it going to fail? What are the modes and what are the effects? And so, for example, if you had a platform like Facebook, um, I'm sure, I suspect they knew, but when they saw a rise in the usage of certain engrams, certain phrases, right, like sets of tokens, and these are like phrases, a group of tokens, they knew that someone was affecting an influence operation on their network. They would have had to if they were testing for that. So if the platforms want to monitor and make sure that, the ranges that they've set in this failure modes and effects analysis, and the thresholds that they've set are not being met, then I think that would certainly give them a very good window into when these types of operations are taking place, if that makes
Mm.
sense. Monitoring, you need to operationalize your monitoring and have ML ops. It turns out to be the solution for almost everything in AI security.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also interesting, yeah, influence ops. I've never heard that term before. Um, But it is interesting though, in the kind of given the shifting media landscape as well, how I would say impactful that could be, because legacy media is dying on the vine, or pretty much is a corpse of itself at this point. It's pretty much podcasters and social media is how everyone gets their news, pretty much, right? Public media just got defunded, so there that goes bye bye for the most part, and it's media consumption is a very fascinating thing. Versus when I go to Europe, for example, right? It's interesting. They have physical newsstands that sell weird things called magazines and books.
Wait, sorry, hold on, Grandpa. What's that? What's that? A
Yes,
MAGA what?
yes, MAGA zines. So it's yeah, it's yeah, it is pretty fascinating. Like the number of people I see reading books is declining anecdotally too. It's fascinating. So it's just quick videos on the phone. It's people of all ages too. So I can definitely see where this influence ops would be highly effective, very
But
effective.
I'm not even gonna shield the I don't want to say mainstream media because that's kind of a dog whistle, but you know what I'm talking about, legacy media. Like I don't want to absolve them of blame for this because right
Yeah.
now you can be a rando and tweet a thing, and if it gets enough likes, and I assure you, if I am, simultaneously 500 people on the internet, my tweet's going to get a lot of likes,
Hmm.
right? If that tweet gets a lot of likes, then it's going to be reported on as news as
Hmm.
news by multiple outlets, and then it's going to be retweeted and blow up. And there's an old movie about this from the 90s called Wag the Dog, and
Oh
they,
yes.
one of my favorite movies. This was back when I was working in policy work, but they kind of laid out how easy this is to do, and social media made it so much easier because everyone has a camera, everyone has a mass distribution system, and yeah, it's not intractable, but it's a serious problem.
It's a big one. Well,
Sorry to bum you out.
that's fine. I'll just go back on LinkedIn real quick and just kidding. Um, much safer
Everything's
place.
on fire.
No, it's I feel like even LinkedIn is sort of on the decline too. I mean, it's maybe it always has been, but I feel like the algorithm is definitely pushing for very cheesier business posts, I would say, than used to be. It's definitely focusing on the business thought leader who has probably a lot of things to say and nothing to say at the same time. So,
Am I
um,
high, or like, are they just, is
but you
everything
might be. I don't know.
fair enough, fair enough. Well, if not, we'll work on it. But like, no, I'm just saying, but like, is every single LinkedIn post written in haiku format now or something?
Yeah,
Like,
no shit,
it,
right? It's fucking
why
crazy.
are they all written like that? What is this one line, and then and then they all have a punchline, and then it literally like builds and then
Because they're all
crests
using
and then
ChatGPT to make their posts. I swear to God. Like, I know people who pay for. It's funny in the data space. I know people that like are very popular, quote, supposed business execs. They pay for the followers, they pay for engagement, and they pay for social media curation, and the people will make their posts to look like a LinkedIn post. Other people use ChatGPT to make it look like a LinkedIn post. I spent all April Fools doing this as a joke. I created this whole persona of myself, very corporate Joe. I had to make just posts about me giving TED Talks about some dumb shit like return to office is amazing, and it went viral. Actually, the whole thing went viral. Like it would the whole damn thing went viral. Every single, and I changed my entire profile to make myself look like this. It was a very good joke. Joke was on me at some point, but it's like, but it can be done. And the point is, it got good engagement. And I was like, I do need to dust this off and actually make that persona happen for real. But it can be done, and people like those posts. I don't know why. They're vacuous, they're useless. Um, but yeah, I don't know.
people love it. I mean, it's, in a sense, it's easy to consume, but for me, like after a certain point, it's just so repetitive. I'm just like, I'm not reading all that. I'm sorry, man. You should have
No,
made that shorter.
yeah, like your posts are good because you have a take. My posts are just stupid. They don't really say anything. It's more like Instagram. It's pictures, so it's interesting.
I should
Um,
switch to that. I should switch to that. I think having takes is overrated.
just be unhinged in like short format, just a paragraph. Doesn't need to be long. So,
Mm-hmm.
but anyways, good chatting with you. Yeah, learned a lot. So, have to have you back on sometime
Thank you so
if
much
you
for
want.
having me. I really appreciate it.
Anytime. For people who want to find out more about you, how can they find you?
I am on most social media platforms as Disesdi, Disesdi. You can find me on LinkedIn, X, Blue Sky, I think all of the big ones that way, and disesdi.substack.com. And I would
Okay,
love to connect.
sounds good. All right, I'll put those in the show notes. And thanks again. Great chat. So, see you later. Bye.